Second time we fought was in Detroit. And this is, and I don't know if people know this, but and then we had a lot of political things that were going on. They were, trying to ban it, and we even got kicked out one city and had to go into Dothan, Alabama to do a fight overnight. Right. So there was always these things going on. Well, when I went there, it was 2 to 3 weeks prior to that, these guys did a show over in Canada and they were arrested for striking. They were told not to do it, and if they did, they'd get arrested. Well, they went in, they did it, they got arrested. Now, I had a group home at the time when I was working with troubled youth, and I owned this home, so I worked for the state, basically. They told us the same thing. I was like, at this time, I had a cracked rib and a fractured nose, and I was like, I was going to knock Dan out. I was basically just going to ground and pound him because I couldn't use my knee. I had a bad knee, a bad rib, and a nose, so I felt like I'll just ground and pound him, Well, they took the striking away. They came and told us that if we were to strike, that we would get fined. Now, this is the UFC. But we would collect at our leisure. Wink, wink. Which meant, like, go ahead and strike. We're not going to do anything. And hopefully they're not going to arrest you if you do. Well, my mindset was like, I can't do that. I can't do that. I represent this group home and these kids that I'm trying to rehabilitate, and telling them that, hey, listen, you do anything you want. Just like me, you can do anything you want if you stay within the rules, which is what I was taught. My anger, my frustration, as long as I stay within the rules, I was okay. And when outside of those, then that's not okay. And so that's how I grew up. That's how I developed my life and was able to be successful. Now I'm teaching these other kids the same thing. And now I'm being told by a professional organization to go ahead and break the rules, because even though it's illegal, we're okay with it. We'll fine you, wink, wink, which means they weren't going to collect. So, but the way this thing is stated now is that striking is illegal, and we could possibly get arrested. We're the main event. I wasn't going to fight. And they all came to my room, and even my father, you got to do it. You can't not do this. And I was already not thinking about fighting because of my injuries, but I felt like, well, I could still beat him just striking him and hitting him and, ground and pounding him, because I felt I was that much more dominant than him. When that was gone, I was like, how am I going to, I can't do anything. My knee's bad, so I can't do submissions, and my ribs bother me, so if he grabs me and takes me down and I can't strike him to keep him off of me, what am I going to do? It's like, but there was so much money right now. The place was sold out. The intensity and the build up for this fight. And so I said, all right, I'll do it. But I'm not striking. I'm not going to strike him. And my father goes, don't worry about it, man. You can just submit him. And I was like, Pa, it says it's hard enough for me to submit somebody when I'm healthy, let alone when I've got injuries. This is not easy going in there and trying to put somebody in submission position. So I go in there and I fight. And if you watch the fight, it was boring. The most boring fight ever in UFC history. I admit that. Dan says it was the most strategical fight. I was like, it was boring, man. He danced around the outside and never shot on me. I was waiting for him to shoot on me to try to at least stay in top position and look for a submission and try to catch a submission, which I knew it had to be set up for me. It would be hard for me to move around. But nevertheless, I couldn't strike him. And he didn't know that, though. He didn't know I wasn't going to strike him. So it was really a boring fight. I mean, it was bad. And so Dan shoots on me. I block him. I think it was only 1 or 2 shots in the whole fight. And I blocked him. Ended up on top. And so he spun through. I tried to put my hooks in. Lost my hook because of my knee. I couldn't get it in deep. So I slipped off it. And he ended up on top. And he started throwing punches. I blocked all of them. I think he may have landed 1 or something like that. But nothing devastating. I kick him off and back up to the feet we go. And this happened twice, but only one time that I ended up on the bottom. It was about 15, 20 seconds. But all the other times I was on top. I controlled him the whole time, whether it was stand up or on the ground. But I didn't do anything. The fight ends. and they raised Dan's hand. I was like, how did I was in control of the fight. Even though it was boring, I controlled the stand-up, and when he shot on me, I ended up on top both times and only lost position once when I went for a submission and missed it. Ended up on bottom. He threw, I don't know, 4 or 5 punches, and one of them landed, which was a glancing shot. How did he win? And Art Davies came to me, which is, at the time was a fight, set up the fights. I said, how did he win? He goes, he landed more punches. I looked at him, I said, that's illegal. He looked at me and went, come on. I was like, come on what? And I never threw one punch in that fight, not one. And I lost it because he landed a punch. So that's one of those other fights. And not that it was, I should have probably just gave it to him on the performance. Both of us, it should have been stripped. Should have been open and let somebody else fight for it, because it was really a bad fight.